So Baptist Church, this is Pastor Mitch coming to you for a weekday devotional. Real quickly, I want to share a story with you. I'll never forget, back when I was at Portage, I had the teenagers come over. I had a little project I wanted to get started on at the house, and I wanted to construct this little shelving unit for the bathroom that I had newly renovated. So, we went out on a little field trip to Walmart, picked up the cheapest of the cheap kind of shelving unit, and when we got it, I remember Josh being the one that volunteered to help me out as the other kids were hanging out at the house. And Josh, made the quick comment. He said, "Hey, do you think we should look at the instructions first?" And me, being the typical guy that I am, I just brushed that off. I'm like, oh, who needs the instructions? It's like a little $20 shelving unit. How hard could this be? And so I just get straight after it. And Josh is looking at me like, I think it'd be prudent. I think it'd be wise if we looked at the instructions first. Well, I think he was right. I'll give you one guess on how that all turned out. Yeah, not very good. Matter of fact, we were at Walmart returning the thing just a couple days later. So, Josh's words still ring true to this day. And I don't know what it is about us guys. My dad used to do the same kind of thing. I remember being in the sticks of Missouri. And he said, "Oh, I know where I'm going. We don't need directions." And, come to find out, we take this big old loop for about an hour. And I'm telling you, I think we wound up in the same place that we started about an hour later. And so anyway, all that to say, sometimes it's prudent for us just to follow the instructions. And so I want to talk about that today as we talk about the instructions that the church has. When we think about the church, our mission is to go out and to reach the world around us for Jesus Christ. Well, come to find out, Jesus gives us a pretty good template for how that ought to happen. In Acts chapter 1, verse 8, I just want you to listen to what the Bible has to say here. Acts chapter 1, verse 8 says, "You shall receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you, to be witnesses of me in Jerusalem, and then in all of Judea and Samaria, and even to the ends of the earth." So come to find out, Jesus knows a thing or two about how to reach the world. And here's what he says. He says, first, I want you to start in Jerusalem. Then I want you to go to your Judea and Samaria. And then I want you to go to the ends of the earth. And what he's doing is he's talking about leveraging proximity. He talks about how you start in your own backyard. Jerusalem would have been right where they were at in the early church. And so come to think of it, sometimes the best place to start if we want to reach the world is right where we're at. To impact the people that we run into every day. Our neighbors, our coworkers, our friends, our family, the waitress we meet at the restaurant, the teller at the bank, the clerk at the grocery store, right? Over and over and over again, God places people in our path that we can be a blessing to, that we can go out and try to reach and leverage for the gospel of Jesus Christ. So come to find out, Jesus says, you don't have to go to a stateside mission or even around the world to get started on this mission that I have for you. He says you could start in your own backyard, in your own Jerusalem. And then he goes on to say you could go to your Judea and Samaria. So that would be like a stateside mission trip. And hopefully our church will engage in more of those in the coming days. Hopefully we can go and do a mission trip somewhere local. Or even to the ends of the earth. I've got a missionary that's going to speak to us later this year. And maybe we could plan a trip out there to Toga, Africa. And so there's no telling, but the point being is, when it comes to God's game plan for reaching the world, it starts right at home. And so think to yourself, who are the people in your close proximity that you could leverage to share the gospel of Jesus Christ? And we've got a ton of resources here at the church for you to do just that. There's ways that you could start reaching them. We got these gospel tracts. These are brand spanking new. On the front it says you're invited. And on the back, it gives all the information about where to go and what the service times are. And on the inside is a very nice laid out gospel tract. And so these are for you. You could also do just a simple invite by way of business card of Valpo Baptist Church with all the information about Sunday service. You could even give away these pens. I like to give these away to waitresses. Waitresses use pens all the time. And this is just a simple way to leave this behind as a blessing for a waitress, but it's also got all of the church information on there. And so they could make sure to remember who blessed them with that pen. And so all that to say, you could get started with just some of those simple resources, but the point being is look for the opportunities to reach those that are closest to you. Just follow the instructions. Jesus shared with us, this is what we ought to be doing. This is the work of the church, to go and to be his witness in Judea, starting in Jerusalem, then to Judea and Samaria, and even to the ends of the earth. Now, here's the problem with that. The problem is that many of us allow fear to creep in the way. And I just wanted to address that real quickly. I think fear comes in multiple different ways, doesn't it? First of all, sometimes you could say, well, Pastor, I have a fear that I don't know enough. And you're afraid to really go out and share or to invite or to witness because you're thinking maybe they'll ask a question that I don't have an answer to. And then the other one is sometimes we're afraid to lose relationships. We think that if we invite or if we share the gospel that maybe people will get upset or offended and they'll push back and they may not even want to be our friend anymore. And so I want to address those two fronts of fear, the fear of not knowing enough, the fear of losing friends. The Bible tells us exactly where fear comes from. The Bible tells us that God does not give us a spirit of fear, but rather the spirit of power, love, and self-control. And so I'll give you one guess. If fear does not come from God, where do you think fear comes from? That's right, it comes from the enemy. And so we need to keep that in perspective, because if we're feeling those feelings of fear and we're too afraid to leave behind a pen, to leave behind a tract, to share the gospel with somebody, to invite somebody to church, if that fear is boiling up inside of you, the first thing I want you to do is to remind yourself where that fear is coming from. It's certainly not of God. It's the enemy that is causing you to do that. And so here's how you can alleviate some fear. Okay, when it comes to being a witness, did you notice whose power you're going to be a witness in? In Acts chapter 1, verse 8, he doesn't say that you will be my witnesses in your own power, but where does our power come from? The Bible tells us that we will receive the Holy Spirit, that the power comes from the Holy Spirit. And so I want you to remember that when you witness, when you invite people to church, when you go out and share the gospel with others, okay, you're not doing it in your strength and in your power. You're doing it because the Holy Spirit inside of you is enabling you to do it. So when you have this fear of not knowing enough, or you have this fear of losing relationships, don't allow that fear to consume you, because it's God himself that's going to help you in this effort. Matter of fact, in the Great Commission, right, the Bible tells us that, go make disciples, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to observe all that I've commanded you. And then what's the end part of that? And I will be with you even till the end of the age. Jesus himself promises that he'll be with us in this process, that we don't have to do this alone. And the second thing I want you to remember is that it's not about you doing it in your own strength, but rather it's about obedience. Okay? So this will alleviate our fear if we just recognize that this is really just about obedience. The Bible tells us that some can water, some can plant, right? You could do these different things, but who's the one that gives the growth? The Bible tells us that it's God who gives the growth. And so when it comes to evangelism, we leave the results up to God. Just extend that invite. Just extend that gospel presentation. Just share what's on your heart. And then you know what? You're not responsible for the outcome. God's the one that's responsible for the outcome. Our only role in all of this is obedience. We're just to be obedient with what God has asked us to do. AKA, just follow the instructions, right? And so had I done that with my little bathroom shelf unit, things would have went much smoother. And I'll tell you what, if we as a church just follow the instructions, then God can do some great things with our effort. But the thing is God can't grow a seed that hasn't been planted. So get out there and plant some seeds. All right, church, I want you to get out there and get busy sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ. Get out there and get busy inviting people to church. Get out there and get busy with the right sorts of things and let God bless our effort. And man, I don't know about you, but I'm getting excited. Did you see all the people that came into God's house last Sunday? This coming Sunday, we've already rearranged the chairs so that we can, house more people for Sunday mornings. And man, I'm excited about that. And so I hope that you're getting excited too. And I think God has some really awesome things in store for us. All right, friends, until the next time, I love you all, I'm praying for you. And I'm excited about everything that's happening at the church. If you haven't signed your kids up for Awana, get that signed up. Make sure those kids are coming out. They had a blast yesterday as they enjoyed that time together. All right, we'll see you soon.